Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Let's Chat on Sunday. I am here with John Davis, and I am really excited for this conversation. In case you don't know, let me introduce John to you. John Davis is the host and creator of the YouTube channel John of New. John of New discusses spiritual and life topics such as reincarnation, NDEs, lost civilizations, and religious text interpretations. John found his calling after an experience through a past life regression, where he discovered his past life walking with Jesus as John the Beloved. Prior to this life-changing regression, he had pre-validation from 19 psychics over a 1-year period. Amazing story. And if you want to hear more about that story, we did do a previous episode you can go look up on the channel. But welcome, John, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Kim. I love being here with you and your community. You've got such a lovely group that I enjoy being here with them and seeing you on Thursday nights too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I have to agree. Our community is amazing. And I want to quickly just thank Carol Lamb for jumping in as our lead moderator today. And you are all set, Carol. So go ahead and have at it. And thank you for doing that. And anyone else who wants to jump in, thank you so much. So I wanted to first, this Sunday show I wanted to kind of have a show where we could talk more about spiritual topics, world topics, that kind of thing, and kind of a little bit away from politics, just to give us our brains a rest from all of it and our and our nerves a rest from all of it. But I actually don't think we can talk about this topic without bringing in a little bit of what's been going on over the past several years. And so I wanted to start off by talking about the fact that, in 2016, when Trump came in, we saw an uptick of meanness, of cruelty, of yelling in public places, throwing fits on airplanes, another uptick during COVID, right? People kind of lost it in another way. But it also, I kind of noticed the rise in a decrease in empathy with the anonymity of social media, with shows like, I was even thinking back, I'm like, when did this kind of begin, or when did I start to see it more? And with shows like American Idol, where people that were, clearly had sometimes had mental issues or social issues, were flogged and insulted in public in a way that was supposed to be funny. We were all supposed to laugh at it. So I wanted to know when you noticed kind of this decrease in empathy, this rise in kind of meanness or cruelty, and what you make of all of the landscape right now.
Well, I love this question because I noticed it long before the election in 2016. But what the difference is what I was seeing was a rise in empathy and a louder response to that rise. When I first came out with my story, it was 1999, and I actually left the spiritual community for about 10 years because it was so shallow back then that everyone had to be right or wrong, and it was very polarized. When I came back, thanks to a lovely lady named Kim Carey, who interviewed me on her channel and knocked me back into the light.
I said, it's different now.
But what was so interesting to me was the difference I saw in humanity between then and now was people now are very much more open to their feelings and very much more open to it. And I think that's one of the reasons that's we're seeing such a crazy rise right now, especially starting in 2016, like you said, was that the people who can't shift into this new loving world that we're creating, this new, you can call it 5D, you can call it the new world, you can call it whatever, we're shifting right now, and humanity is shifting to a much more loving and caring place. But what's the first thing Socrates said? He said, "When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser." They start
Mhm.
screaming, they start yelling, they start calling names. But you ask them for some substance. You ask any of them for some substance behind what they're saying. They don't have substance. All they have is something to yell at and scream at and holler at and complain about. So for me, it was interesting in seeing the rise in people becoming more empathic, watching the other people say, "No, no, no, you can't become empathic. You can't become loving because we're fearful." And
Right.
that's how I saw it.
I think that's a great point, and I think that you're right. So what do you think it is that makes people afraid to shift into a loving vibration? Is it being vulnerable? They don't want to be vulnerable. It brings up that idea of vulnerability.
Well, it does bring up an idea of vulnerability, but it also, I believe in something I like to call the velvet cage. We know our fears, we know our anxieties. We're very comfortable in dealing with our fears and anxieties. But to step into a more loving world means to trust. And to trust means you have to be open to all people and all experiences. And we don't like to come out of our velvet cage because we're comfortable there because we know what it's like there. But when we open the door, we can fly. But they don't know that. All they know is that I'm safe because I understand this circumstance, this experience. And when I realize that I can open this door and fly, it takes me a distance of flight to realize it's okay to trust it again. But it does take a bit of bravery to step out and speak your truth and be loving and caring in the world. And I think a lot of people just want to control and hold power because it's the only way they feel safe.
Right. And I think, well, it's hard to say because it's exhausting both ways, right? Because my I was having I was talking to my daughter, and she'll have these animal things that will flip up on her. This animal was rescued, and this was how they were treated, and stuff. And it will lay her flat for a
Hmm.
day. She'll
Yeah.
be like, "Why is this happening? Why are people so mean?" And she said one time, "I wish I could just be one of these people who just doesn't care, because seems like it would be so much easier. It would be so much less complicated. It's so hard to feel sometimes. It's so hard to care so much." And I think the other way is true though too, because if you've ever hated someone or been angry at someone or jealous of someone, those are exhausting
Yeah,
energies to live in, right?
absolutely. And we're all predisposed to lean towards love over fear. We want to have a loving. Everybody wants to be loved in some form,
Right.
but it's the fear of not being loved that makes people get into those spaces of fear and anxiety and stress. And if you look at, like, right now, what's going on in Maui in Hawaii,
Mhm.
one of the problems the police are having right now is that all the people trying to drive in, there's a large percentage of the people who are trying to drive in with food and clothing and water, and they're trying to. They're like, there's too many of you coming in. There's too many
Right.
people going into the air. There's too many people who saw a problem and went to the store, and out of
Right.
their own money bought all this stuff, loaded it in their pickup trucks, and drove there. You know, and I think it's interesting that it's becoming a problem that these people are being empathic. That they're feeling for their neighbors, they're feeling for their fellow humans, and I really think that when the only way we really change the world or save the world is by making our part of the world so bright that others people can see the brightness, and then choose to get you take the off ramp and come over and try it. Because empathic people have this overall tendency to want to save the world, and yeah, you can't save the world, but you can only make your part to the point where they start changing around you, and that's what changes the world. It's a matter of realizing that those people who are fearful, you can still love them, you can still experience them, but you don't have to like them. You don't have
Mhm.
to enjoy them, right? But you
Right.
can say, and this is how I handle it because I was born a very highly empathic person. This is how I handle it now. I didn't handle it
Mhm.
like this back in the day, but now when someone's coming up to me and they're giving me that anxiety and that stress, the first thing I think in my head, the first thing I do is I exhale. I let go of my fear response to it.
Right.
And then I think in my head, what's their fear? What are they afraid of? And you can always find the fear that they're yelling about. You can always find the fear that they're screaming about. And you can usually find a way of saying, I understand this is what you're seeing. This is how I see it. Meeting them where they are first, empathically, and saying, I understand what you're thinking, what you're saying, and meeting them in that way, you're actually able to diffuse things much more quickly because of the fact that they're now not feeling attacked by you. They're being heard by you first. And that's kind of an interesting way of handling it.
And is this the way do you believe this is the way this changes? Is not so much with a megaphone, shouting people down, saying, be more empathetic. It's going to be the one-on-one exchanges, the one-on-one conversations.
Yeah. Mother Teresa once said, they asked her to go to an anti-war rally. She said, no, have a pro-peace rally and I'll come. Right. Mm. She understood the feeling of being in peace, and that being anti-war, being screaming against something,
right,
only amplifies it. And not only does it amplify it, it makes them accelerate it. It makes them actually go to the next level of escalation. Whereas if you can say, I hear you, I understand this is, and show them a different way, in a more kind way, you end up having, and it has to be a one-on-one. To give you an example, I had 2 trees that were standing dead in my backyard, and I went on Facebook Marketplace and I put up an ad saying, free firewood, you cut it, right? And this lady showed up with her son, and they were lovely people. And then one day she says to me in my backyard, she says, you know what I did this morning? I said, what? She says, I set my neighbor's Joe Biden sign on fire, right? And I turned to her and I looked at her and I said, I like you, but you and I are never going to talk about politics. Right? And she said, okay. And she ended up baking me cookies. I coached her son. I showed her that we don't have to agree, but right. I can be loving even though you set my Joe Biden sign on fire, not my fire.
Right, right.
But you have to understand, I came from Delaware. I've known Joe since I was 5, so
right.
He's my boy.
Right. And I think that brings up a good point about understanding and also seeing ourselves in the other. Could you talk a little bit about the golden rule? And because I think that's like it's the kind of the poster for empathy. I think it's it very quickly, very easily explains what empathy is. But can you talk a little bit about the golden rule?
When you say the golden rule, are you saying, he who has the gold has the rules? No.
Well,
that's what they like to think.
It'd be the United States a little bit right now.
A buddy of mine once said, whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. What you give, you get. What you think, you become. You create your world. Buddha, you are the culmination of your thought. Krishna. That thought, that belief that you're putting out, you're going to get back exactly what you put into it. You would call it karma. You might call it the law of attraction, right? But to give you an example, I went to Egypt for a month, and I was traveling through Egypt, and everywhere I went in Egypt, I was treated like I was family by everybody I met. I ended up meeting Dr. Hakim, who many of you, he's passed away now, but he was one of the most famous Egyptian archaeologists. And I got to go sit in his house and listen to that man speak, just by being friendly to people. On about day 20, I was climbing Mount Sinai at 2:30 in the morning. Now, I started climbing at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you do it at night like that because you reach the top at sunrise. 2:30 in the morning, an hour and a half into my climb, I hear someone calling my name. John, which was, by the way, really trippy on the side of Mount Sinai in the darkness. Hearing your name called, John, right? But it wasn't God. It was the manager of the hotel coming up the mountain. The manager of the hotel ran up the mountain an hour and a half to give me his code because they thought I'd be cold, right? The next day I ran into another American. He says, hey, you American? I said, yeah. He says, have you been having problems since you've been here? I said, no, not at all. He says, everywhere I go, people want to fight me.
Oh.
5 minutes later, I wanted to fight that guy. Not really. He had this fear and anxiety, being in a Muslim country as a Christian, that the Muslims were going to want to fight him. Mm-hmm. I came to the country loving the country and loving the people and loving everyone around me, no matter what they believed.
Right.
And we both had the same experience. So what you put out, you are getting back. Treat people like you want to be treated, and when you do that, that's my interpretation of the golden rule. Am I off base? Do you think?
Right. Well, no, no, no. I think that's exactly right. I think treating people as you want to be treated. To me,
Yeah.
that also explains how to practice empathy.
Right.
That's how you do it.
Right.
How would I feel if I were in that person's situation? How would I, how would I want to be treated if I were in, this person's situation? So I just, when I was thinking about empathy, I thought, the golden rule is a great, yeah, it's a great
Yeah. And
way to put it.
the thing I said earlier about when someone's in your face and they're yelling at you and first exhaling and then asking what their fear is. I was directing the Tennessee Renaissance Festival many years ago, and my favorite musical act was performing there, and I just loved this group, and I gave them what I thought were great time slots. And the opening weekend, I'm walking by their stage, and one of their band members comes running out. He was about the same height as me, big guy, right up into my face, stuck his finger in my nose, started yelling at me, "You mother effer," blah 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 blah. And I first thing I did was I exhaled, and I thought to myself, "What's his fear?" And I did not show defense. I did not show offense. I turned the other cheek, and just became peace. And he just yelled and he yelled and he yelled and he yelled. And he said terrible things, but they're not mine, they're his. So
Right.
no matter what he's saying about me, I can take offense to it, or I can just say, "Why is he afraid?" After about a few minutes, he slowly calmed down. I said, "Jerry, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. It wasn't intentional. How do we solve it?" And he stormed off. And then 10 minutes later, he walked back and says, "John, I'm sorry. I'm just stressed out." I said, "No, Jerry, it's okay." Right? That could have gone very differently. I
Right.
mean, he could have jumped in my face and I could have reacted to what he was doing and it would have escalated. I like to call it being an action hero rather than a reaction zero, right?
Right.
You stay
Right.
you stay in action. I am in this moment. I am in the present moment. I am not, you know, reacting to him and living his life. I'm living mine. And my life is peaceful and joyful. And when this person comes up in front of me, they're the one who's not. And as an empathic person, one of the greatest things I had to teach myself was that's theirs, not mine.
Mm,
Because
that's
most
great.
people don't delineate that. That's theirs, not mine. The other thing that an empathic person has, and somebody who's raising an empathy especially, they tend to run into relationships with narcissists.
Hmm.
And the main reason is because, empathic people are givers and narcissists are takers. And so
Hmm.
you get a marriage made in hell, right? Really. And the comes to the realization where there's this word ego, and the word is, it's used in many different terms, but in psychotherapy, it means the I, the awareness of self.
Right.
It doesn't mean narcissist. It means the awareness of self. And people use it as narcissist now.
Right.
But there's an awareness of self that has to remain in balance. And empathic people tend to give so much of themselves they forget to include themselves. And narcissists take from everybody and don't include anybody else. They only on themselves. And it's a matter of coming into balance and saying, okay, I love myself equally because there's no one part of God that is less than or greater than any other. And so I have to love myself equally enough to not let that person's anger and frustration and narcissism ruin my life or change my experience for theirs.
Yeah, and I have had that experience. I mean, well, my mom used to call me the that I would bring home stray friends
Right?
because I would bring home every kid that had all the problems in the world, and and it was that empathy part of me empaths can leave themselves open to manipulation too because they want that's all they want to do is help
Yeah.
and fix and help and fix. And so they can definitely, like you said, the narcissist and the empath kind of go hand in hand
Right.
because you've got one that likes to manipulate and likes to take advantage of, and the other one
Right.
that doesn't see it that way. They just want to help. They just want
See,
to
and
keep
the other
helping.
cool thing about the cool thing about empathy and empaths in general is when they came here with a thinner veil. They came here knowing what the world should feel like, and it just doesn't. And so they spend their lives trying to make it feel like loving and caring. Why don't they don't understand why people don't love the way they do or think the way they do? And in that regard, they tend to isolate themselves. They don't like to go into crowds because what they're experiencing in crowds is all of that thought, all of that feeling. They gravitate towards animals because animals love unconditionally without any issues, right? They tend to get into relationships with narcissists. There's
Yeah.
these experiences of being reactive to the world rather than being active to the world. And when you
Mhm.
step into the place that's theirs, not mine, you start to realize that you're in action as well. When that guy Jerry was screaming in my face, my first thought was to exhale, because
Mhm.
when we exhale, we're actually releasing the fear state that our body goes through primally. We just come back to that relaxed state and be in our relaxed state, because all of us, our natural state is loving. The
Right.
fears are what obscure the view.
Right.
And some people are very obscure.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And it's that those layers upon layers that we add through our lives, right? Because usually when we're children, unless this is not in the a case of a extremely traumatic childhood, but when we're kids, we're very open. We're very welcoming everybody, loving everybody, very open. And as these things happen to you and you get told you're not that great, and
right.
you're this and you're that, and these layers come up and they kind of cover you and cover that up. I think with empaths, sometimes I was thinking about it was, you were just talking about that empaths being very, having that thinner veil. And I remember we went through a summer where Cassie and I watched a bunch of the show Intervention.
Hmm.
We watched it like a bazillion episodes because we just got like addicted to it. And what we noticed is that every time there was a heroin addict, 9 times out of 10, they were an empath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And they
yeah.
would, at the end, when they were clean and stuff, they were so empathic. They usually were involved in some, working with animals, and every time I'd be like, Cassie, that person's an empath. I could just feel it.
Yeah.
Empath,
Yeah.
one empath to another, I could just feel it. And I thought, heroin, it's because it doesn't make it numbs your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it does. It numbs that, like you said, it adds the veil that you don't have.
I absolutely love that analogy, because I have a theory that addiction itself is medicating fear. Because you look at say an alcoholic. I'm all addicted to root beer, right? So yeah,
That's okay.
I need a root beer. I need a root beer. I need a root beer, right? And I go, and I
Oh, thank
exhale, right?
goodness.
And then I need a cigarette. I need a cigarette. Every time they get the substance that they thought, they allow themselves to exhale, which is the release of fear. And so then they start associating the substance with the release of fear, and so saying, I need that to release my fears and anxieties, and be relaxed. And what I've helped so many people quit smoking just by saying, go have a breathing break instead of a smoking break. Just go outside and really breathe in deep and exhale, and just do that. They quit smoking really quickly because they start associating breathing, imagine that, with actually being good for us. Right?
Right.
And so they get addicted to breathing, right? It really comes down to that empathic people, like I said earlier, they just want to save the world. Now, you said something that was beautiful. Children don't have those beliefs, right? Now, this guy behind me said a couple things, right? He said, you must become as a child to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Mm.
And he said, you must be born again, which go back to that place before belief. Go back to that place before you were told you weren't worthy, before you were told that you were, heavy or ugly, or any of those unloving beliefs that you've been told in life. Go back before all that and start over. And the born again thing is fascinating to me, because that means you literally put a period at the end of the last chapter and you start writing a new chapter. And you have the ability to choose whether you're writing a comedy or a tragedy. It's a matter of you writing the comedy. I personally chose action, comedy, adventure, but I think you can absolutely say, that was that part of my life. And now, it's like the people who say they were the love of my life. That's because the addiction is the relationship that they had.
Right.
But until they say they were the love of that part of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm moving forward, then they open themselves up to possibility. But when they're so empathically connected to that feeling that's behind them, and not releasing it, not cutting the anchors, then they get stuck in their velvet cage and they get very uncomfortable there.
Right. And I love that interpretation of born again, because I think that's, it sounds like that was Jesus's interpretation. But when we think of it now, we think of some kind of giving yourself fully over to Jesus. And
Right.
that isn't what it's about, right?
Not at all. Even the word faith is so screwed up right now because
Mm,
Christians think faith means faith in Jesus. Faith only means belief. So
right.
when you say, whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith, means if you believe it, right? When he also
Right.
says, when you pray, believe you shall receive, and you shall. That's his teachings, but you can find it in all sorts of other teachers. Just what your belief, what you think you become, you create your world. And so on. There's so many
Or it
different
even
ways of
sounds like
saying it.
manifesting, right?
It absolutely is. See, and I think the whole law of attraction manifesting, I think that's just the marketing of creation.
Yeah.
Right, right. Because you can create health, you can create
For
wealth, you can create.
remarketing.
Right, yeah, right, right. So, but I think really it comes down to understanding. As I said on a different interview, I said we're the inspiration. God is the paintbrush, and the canvas. You know, we get to put what's on the canvas, but all the pieces and parts that make up the thing in the end are come from the source. But nothing happens if we don't inspire it into being. Right.
Right.
So when you look at manifestation, and in being an empath, you manifest really quickly because God speaks to us in feelings, not thinking, as an empathics or feely people. And
Mm-hmm.
so they feel they're lost in the world. They feel like they can't go out in the public. They feel like this, and so they start closing themselves off. When they feel I am safe to explore and put myself out there, to make this a little bit personal for me, I did not want to step out and say that I was the reincarnation of John the Beloved Apostle.
Right.
And even before you pushed me out again.
But you had a second time.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
I didn't want to be the guy who thought he was Napoleon, and I didn't want that experience. But stepping out and know, because I knew it was true. I felt it in my heart that it was true. Stepping out and expressing that truth and making myself vulnerable has led me to some of the most beautiful experiences of my life by being my
Mm,
authentic self. And that's the hard part for empathic people is being their authentic self, because they're always trying to please, so they're always putting a mask on for somebody else. And in all honesty, that's why they call me Triple X, because I have three ex-wives, right? Right. And the lesson I learned in my three ex-wives was they fell in love with me. We got together. The expectations changed, and I changed to try to please the expectations on all three of my marriages.
mhm.
Totally my fault, right?
Right.
I became somebody I wasn't,
Mm,
and so I lost my wives. And
right.
I don't look at it as a regret. I look at it as, oh wow, that was a great lesson to learn, right? But it's a matter of understanding that as an empathic person, our authentic self has value. And the more of us that step into that authentic self and show our value and show our love, which is what everybody wants, is they want to experience that love, we change the world in dramatic ways.
Right.
Dramatic ways. And that's the thing that's so fascinating to me right now, is that I left for 10 years from the spiritual community, came back with your interview, and the difference between people then and now is dramatic. As I said earlier, they are many more empathic people in the world right now. I talk
Mm,
to them in my private sessions every day, and they feel like they're alone. And suddenly somebody's saying, "Just be you, just step out and be love. Don't worry about what anybody else says. That's theirs, not yours." And you come into that space of understanding that they're empathic. They go, I get this now. I understand why I am the way I am, and giving them the permission to say, "You can be you."
mhm.
That's huge for an empath, because empaths want to please, and so they
Yeah.
constantly change. Right? You can be you. You're allowed.
Yeah. It's that is extremely true. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to kind of introduce since we were talking a little bit, we introduced manifesting a little bit, and I kind of wanted to bring in the idea of talk a little bit about money in
Hmm.
our country, because Well, let me just tell you, first of all, my husband and I started watching Succession,
Okay.
and we kept hearing about it and hearing about it. So I said, well, let's just try it and see. And about 4 episodes in, I said, Adam, do you like the show? And he's like, I do. I like the writing, and I think the acting's good. And I said, I don't think I can watch another show that is following the rich around, seeing how great the rich are, and seeing one character that's worse than the next. There's nobody to root for. I don't think I can do it. And I think about what do you think that this kind of billionaire worship, rich people worship that we see in our not necessarily among this community, so don't get up in arms,
Oh,
because I
oh.
know that we're not talking about it here, but in our society in general, what does that do to empathy when everything has a dollar value?
Well,
Or yeah,
I no,
go
I,
ahead.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, the interesting thing is in the Bible, it says the love of money is the root of many evils. And it doesn't say money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the
Right.
root of many evils. And what you're experiencing is these people who are so in love with money that they don't care about other people,
Right.
and they start showing that as a virtue, and it's not virtuous because it's not loving, it's not caring. I am with you, Kim. I can't watch that show.
Yeah.
There's a singer that I love. I love her voice. I can't listen to most of her music, and that's Alanis Morissette.
Mm.
I can't listen to most of her music because it's so angsty and so
Oh.
bitter and so bitter. And I'm like,
It is angsty.
right?
That's for sure.
Yeah, give me a 1950s bebop song over that any day of the week, right? Something
Right.
that's
Right.
fun and lively, and Rockin' Robin, that kind of stuff. Stuff that I can enjoy and love and smile with.
Right.
But when you're hearing people who are victimizing people and then saying this is what we're all supposed to do, right? And then you have the people who intermix spirituality and money with the I am a televangelist, and you need to give me enough money to get my next private plane so I can fly to Zimbabwe and throw them paper towels.
Right. Right.
Right? That sort of expression is detrimental to people, especially empathic people, because
Mhm.
they're seeing themselves as less than. But money is not a bad thing at all. It's just an exchange of energy. And when you ask, I in my life I've asked for money. There have been times where I was short on money, and I just said thank you God for the unexpected income I'm receiving. And bam, it shows up, right? At the end of at the end of COVID, well, last February, I literally said thank you God for the thank you God for the abundant income I am receiving to pay off all these debts I accrued during COVID. Amen. And I said, and I gave it a specific. I said before my birthday. And the next
Right.
day I got a phone, not a phone call, an email in reply to an email I'd written 4 months earlier from Alex Ferrari from Next Level Soul, and he says, "John, I want to bring you on an interview on my channel." I said, "Great." That interview went live in March, and the day before that interview went live, I was booking private sessions 1 week out. I'm currently booking just before Christmas. And I mean, it was like boom. And I had all the money to pay off all those debts. My birthday was in May, paid off long before that, right? Money's not evil if you're doing it for the right person, purpose. If you're doing
Right.
good things and your heart and your intention is good. But when these people like these guys on Succession are all about how can we screw everybody over, or Rupert Murdoch, and that whole
Yes.
thing. How can we make them the most money? And some of these pharmaceutical companies that are like, we know our vaccine has HIV, but let's just sell it in a third world country. That actually happened. That's
Right.
that's the love of money being rampant, and so it's a matter for the rest of us when it does come to light to say, okay, we're no longer going to support that company. We're going to get rid of that company. And just not give them what they need to survive, and then of course the lawsuits and everything else. But it comes down to us recognizing when they are in that state, and actively not supporting them. I have no problem saying that I don't like what somebody's doing and broadcasting it to the people who watch my channel, you
Right.
know, and that in itself gives them the chance to make a choice of their own. Does that answer anything that you just
No,
asked him?
it does because it kind of moves us into this, because I guess part of it is too, I I I don't I guess, I guess I just don't understand that the short-term thinking of, let me just make a buck, because money is money, right? You can always make more money. It's so shallow. It's like, and
Yeah.
I mean,
So now
I'm
think.
just complaining, I know, but
No,
I
no.
think
Let's
the
go
way
back.
our,
Let's go back to the addiction concept. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
they're addicted to power, and money is power,
right,
and so they're
right,
doing anything they can to get more money so that they can exhale.
right,
I mean, that's all. They're into the addiction. They're medicating their own fears, and they're just people who are also lost. The interesting thing, like I said earlier, with the Maui folks having all the problems of all the people trying to come in and help, that's a beautiful problem to have, right?
right.
And when somebody right now we're at a time when the debate is lost and slander is becoming the tool of the loser, and they're all
Mhm.
screaming and yelling and hollering. It's like, I don't talk politics on my channel at all, but if you look right now, there's two parties in our country. One of them is talking about healthcare and student debt and
Mhm.
solving problems, and the other one says that those other people are terrible. I hate those people. They're bad people. They're horrible people. You ask them, so what are you going to do to solve it? We're going to go after Hunter Biden. We're going to go after, they don't,
Right,
they have no substance.
right,
They have nothing. So they know they're losing, and the people, the wealthy are getting very nervous right now because they're realizing that they are small in number,
right,
but their wealth depends on the large number, and the large number is starting to vote with their pocketbooks.
right,
They're starting to say, "No, I'm not buying your product. No, I'm not doing that thing. I'm no longer giving you the money." And you're watching the meltdown of lots of people. For instance, Elon Musk. That man is high speed meltdown right now.
in free fall. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so true.
and it's because he's losing grip on his power. And I think you're going to see a lot more of them losing grip on their power. And as they do, you're going to see a lot more loving things in the world, just like the thing in Maui. And you look at even the war in Ukraine right now. You look at the war in Ukraine. Everybody's so empathic for what's going on. But if you think about what the collective consciousness was manifesting before that, they were manifesting green energy. They were manifesting peace in the world, right?
Right.
Now you have Finland, Sweden, and eventually Ukraine to being part of the peacekeeping force of NATO.
Mhm.
So you're creating a pocket of peace there. Europe stopped buying Russian oil, and what did they do? They invested in green energy. So all of the things that we've been manifesting are coming out of this war, even though these atrocities are happening.
Right,
Horrible things are happening. It's a major shift, and in the end of it, I think that Ukraine is going to come out of it stronger, and Putin's going to fall because Putin is only doing what he's doing for power and money. So it's all going to fall in the end, and
right.
it's come
Well, we've
back.
seen this story before, right? I mean, we've literally seen these stories before. We know exactly how they end,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Gaddafi, speaking from his grave, would be warning Putin right now.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. I mean, yeah, pick one. I mean, pick a Stalin,
Saddam
Hitler,
Hussein.
any from,
Right,
yeah, go back and even in their own history, and they can
right.
see it. But
And
apparently,
let's go back a little further. Let's go back to Gandhi. Right, he kicked the entire British Empire out of India by not fighting, by peaceful defiance. He just wouldn't
right,
work. And what happened was, the public press said, this is an exact quote from one of the reporters. England lost its moral high ground today because they sat there and they beat these people who weren't fighting back. And so in the end, those people who were beaten were it was tragic that happened. But in the end, they got India back, right? So And now we're going
And,
through other stuff over there in that we're part of the world too. But
and Connie brings up the Martin Luther King, studied under Gandhi, and the same thing, right? We saw with the civil rights movement, where you saw people being, as soon as people saw that on television, people being, um, you know, blown back with the hoses and hit and dogs and all that stuff. It was just like, no, this is not who we want
right,
to be.
right, exactly.
Um,
And I think television has been a good and a bad thing. It's a curse and a blessing at the same time,
right,
because we get these reality shows that are not reality at all, that
right.
are telling us one thing. We get the Apprentice, of course, you know, makes us want to be like able to do what Donald Trump does, right? And it, on the other side of that, you see, like the stuff that I watch is the History Channel, or I watch the things that enrich me, the things that do those kind of stories. I don't dive into any of those other ones. In fact, I get rid of cable television a long time ago, and I only watch the things that I want to watch on streaming, just because I don't like to dive into all of the, and I don't like to use the word propaganda. I think they're just, yes, it is propaganda in some form, but it's more them trying to get ratings and their love of money as well. They're
Yeah.
trying, yeah. So it comes back to that love of money again.
And like my daughter Cassie, she's a screenwriter. She's actually in documentaries, but she's a screenwriter. She said the writer's strike was awful last time. That's where all the reality shows came from, because they had no one to write scripts.
She's right. I hope she
Terrible
get,
when the writers go on strike.
is she on strike now?
Was that?
Is she on strike now?
She's not. She's in England, so
Oh,
she's
okay.
just watching it from afar. But
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I hope they get back soon.
I,
Although another thing that happened during the writer's strike was a lot of indie filmmakers got their start,
yes, very true.
and that
Very
that
true.
is a good thing for everybody, because
So great.
people who are thinking, this whole, though I love superhero movies, this whole collective universe thing that they all do has taken us away from good stories about with caring ends, and it's about dragging you to the next box office hit so we can make more money. Whereas I go back and I watch Goodwill Hunting, one of my favorite films of all
Right.
time, and it's such a beautiful movie, right? And
Yes.
remember the movie Phenomenon with John Travolta?
Yep. Hmm.
Oh, what a lovely movie,
I
right?
love that movie too, and we have a movie club in my club, in my club on Intuitiview. We have it at the Intuit Club, and that we do it. We have a movie club, and we take kind of secular movies and pull out all of the spiritual,
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, ideas from them. But we just did Ghost. We just watched Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
And I went back and watched that, and I'm like, I sound like my mom, because I was just like, why don't they make movies like this anymore? Because
Right.
it was just
It's
it was
so
such a
true.
nice movie with, it was funny and sad, and it had these nice messages, and I just thought, why can't they just do that more?
It's so true. They've gotten so into, and especially with the once again the comic book movies, they're leaning into this fan base that wants it their own way, and they're giving up on just telling stories. And I think
Right,
some of the best stories that ever told have been, A Beautiful Mind. What an amazing film that was, and
right.
um, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and
Oh, I love that movie
a great
too.
movie.
That would be a great movie to watch.
There's
Yeah.
so many beautiful films out there, and it's a matter of all of us insisting on getting more of those caring films back in our world, because as empathic people, we want to feel.
Yes.
We want to feel loving. I can't get through the holiday season without watching It's a Wonderful Life and bawling my eyes out. That final scene makes me cry every time. Uh,
Exactly.
White Christmas, when they will follow the old man, I start bawling my eyes
Yeah.
out. Right. And I'm like, look at the feeling of that,
Right.
the love and compassion in that. We need films like that in the world, so that empathic people can have their own studios
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And they're, yeah, exactly. And I just wanted to bring this comment up, because Seascape says the dictator ones always think they can do it different. Um, Anyone ever heard the saying, the meaning of insanity is keep doing the same thing over and over again. And it's true. And I just wanted to bring that up because I think about, we were just talking about that, they always think somehow their story is gonna be different. It's like, no, we've seen
Right.
this before. We've seen it many
Ex-
times before. But
exactly. And I love that quote because that's an Albert Einstein quote.
right.
And another Albert Einstein quote was he says, he says, oh gosh, it was something along the lines of sound and light traveling at two different speeds. He says, but it can't be correct because I think people look so smart until they open their mouth. You know? Right, right. And it makes me laugh. He also, they asked him one time, do you believe in God? And his response was, I believe in the God of Spinoza. And when you go back and look at Baruch Spinoza, he talks about a oneness consciousness of God and how we're all within this oneness consciousness of God. And Einstein's belief about God was much more like ours today in this group, that we believe in this greater consciousness and our connection with it. And when you see science and spirituality coming together, then you know that the world is becoming much more empathic and the veil is definitely getting thinner.
Right. Right. And that kind of brings us into the question about the new earth, because I subscribe to the Eckhart Tolle idea of the new earth, that it's going to be it's a complete shift in consciousness, and it will happen a person at a time, and that creates the new earth. And some people think of it as an actual place that will just, some people will go, almost like some people will go there and some people won't. And
Like the
what
law of
is
one
your,
experience, yeah.
yeah, what is your interpretation of the new earth?
I am 100% with you on this, and I think we're in it. We're in the process now.
Right.
When I see the people, like I said 10 years ago, so shallow, so only caring about my past life instead of hearing what I was talking about, and
Right.
now everybody I talk to is about how can I find that oneness? How can I come to that space? And I really think that we're in the midst of it now, and it's coming to, and what you're seeing in the world, all this negativity, all this struggle, is literally the people who are trying to fight against it out of their own fears and anxieties. But we live in a predominantly positive world, and people say, "No, we don't." Yes, yeah, we do. And you just take the emotional reaction out of it, and just imagine if you, like, if I live in Akron, Ohio, if I commuted to Cleveland every day for work, I would pass 1,000 cars on the road, right? Once a day, I might see a car pulled over the side of the road with an accident. Tonight on the news, the thing that's being broadcast to everybody was how horrible the traffic was that this car had an accident.
Right.
What should be number one on the news is that 999 cars made it to their destination without any problem whatsoever.
Right.
That's how positive our world really is. When those fires happen in Maui, they're having problems with people bringing stuff because the world is predominantly positive. And the problem was what was ended up on the news. The problem that these people were bringing things, but right. So
Right.
the news is only stating the negative,
Right.
and the reality of it is the world is getting more and more positive. In Sufism, they say God is on one side of a veil and we're on the other side of the veil, and our life is a struggle against the veil, and the veil is our fears.
Mm.
And I think that that's what this new world is that veil of our fears are getting thinner. People are stepping out and being more authentic into themselves, and recognizing that they are one with their neighbor. And they see that person on the side of the road, and they hand them money, they buy them a meal. They go through their cupboards and they find food that they're not going to eat, so they take it to a homeless shelter. They start doing these loving, compassionate things, and I think they're doing that strictly out of the fact that they're not being fearful anymore. They're just looking at it from a loving perspective, and I think that's what's happening with the world right now. And I'm so joyful and happy that I get to be here to witness it and be a part of it, because it's, to me, it's such a great day when I get up in the morning and I go to my private sessions and somebody's there saying, "Well, I'm not getting this," and I can do that little tweak to go, "Oh, I get it now," right? And I
Right.
have this, that to me is like the greatest thing in my life, to watch someone go, "Oh, I can just be loving. Sure, okay, great," and so it comes out to be, I this whole new world thing to me is just a lovely flower that's blossoming right now.
I love that. And And do you think that, because you were talking about Maui, and do you think that besides just our the karma that's coming back on how we've treated the earth, but do you think that these disasters we're seeing one after the other are going to be pushing us into the new earth more quickly? It's almost it's pushing us there. Because I think that the reason that this shift is happening is so we all will work together to save
Yeah.
the earth and help to create a better world. But do you think that these disasters are pushing us
Ab-
more quickly to it?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that our outer experience is a product of our belief. And when we're out of balance in our own belief, we're going to start to see disasters and things of this nature. But at the same time, California had all the wildfires. But right now in Northern California on the coast, they're building the first desalinization plant
Mm,
to start desalinating seawater so that California can have fresh water everywhere. Right.
right.
So they're, I mean, you're starting to see these amazing things. These young guys decided to sell little wrist bracelets, and they said, okay, we're going to sell these little wrist bracelets, but all of these bracelets are being made from the plastics we're cleaning up from the ocean, and
Mm,
people are buying them like crazy. Um, then you see the guys who say, well, look, there's all that trash out there in the middle of the Pacific that's like an island. What if we created something that could go out there and collect all that plastic and recycle that plastic into building materials? And they've built these devices now that are going out and starting to collect that trash. Things are happening. Things are already in motion. But as as humans, we want things to be instant. But things happen in slow motion, and sometimes it takes falling off a cliff to realize that we're going to end up at the sea, right? And
right. Right.
the difference is when you fall off the cliff, do you scream, "Ah, I'm dying," or do you go, "Wee, I'm flying," right, right, right? Because it's like I tell people all the time. I said, many years ago, I was so blessed. I had the opportunity to speak at the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach. That's Edgar Casey's house, right?
Mm,
In the
mhm.
metaphysical world, that is like speaking at the Super Bowl, right? I
Right.
was like very excited. Had a big chip in my front tooth. Thank you, God, for the perfect tooth I am receiving. I bit into a sandwich.
Oh
My
no.
tooth broke the rest of the way off. But I had already said, thank you, God, for the perfect tooth I am receiving. Amen. 2 hours later, I got a phone call. John, how you doing? I said, well, honestly, Carol, my tooth just broke off. She says, that's so weird you would say that to me today. I go, why? She says, I just signed the paperwork to become president of Rescue. I'm like, what's Rescue? I've never heard of that. She says, you don't know about Rescue? I said, no, I sure don't. Rescue is an organization that helps Renaissance Festival entertainers get medical and dental work done for free.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
I had done my comedy sword fighting show at Renaissance festivals for 28 years, right? So, long story short, she overnighted me the money to get my tooth fixed,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Right, and didn't have to pay it back. So, the point of the story really is that when when the tooth broke off, I didn't say, "Well, that didn't work." I just kept my feelings in check, and I said, I didn't say I'm dying. I said I'm flying. I said, "Oh, cool. I wonder where this is leading me." Because I
Right.
knew, because I asked, and because I believed, I was receiving. And when the empathic person can keep control of the emotional state, they manifest really fast. They're the fastest manifestors in the world because
Mm,
manifestations come through feelings. And when you get to the point of realizing that when you ask for something, you get something, falling off a cliff is just flying.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end this than than that. And staying in that positive place, even when it, like you said, if you can feel like you're falling off a cliff, but there's always that glass half full, I think, mentality that kind of keeps us all going. And also this idea that we are all in this together as
All of
well.
us.
There really is a sense, especially here. I'm looking at all these amazing little conversations going on the side here, but also, commenting here and there. And it's just so, these communities that we've kind of built all together and that have come together. It's, I mean, like you said, what I'm so blessed to be here and now at this time, because I think it's an amazing time to be alive.
Yeah, it is an amazing time to be alive when you. And can I throw something out here?
Yeah.
I know somebody who's very special to me. Her name is Marcy, and she's in your chat room right now.
Hmm.
And yesterday, I decided I wanted to help her break 1,000 subscribers, and so I'm giving away 3 free readings that she's going to draw when she hits 1,000 subscribers for me. Marcy's also going to do 3 of her own readings for free. So if anybody hasn't been to her channel yet, it's Spirit made me do it, and over there in the chat board, click on her name and subscribe to her channel, and just type in, I want to be in the 1,000 subscriber drawing, and you'll get the chance to win one of my readings or one of Marcy's readings. I just want to see this lovely person
I
get
love
to
it.
1,000
And do you
subscribers.
know that she was my first guest
Oh,
on this show?
oh, lovely! I heard
It
I
was,
heard she did a really
and
good job with some tech
and it
issues.
was it was a trial by fire, because I lost my internet during the show, and she had to do about 30 minutes by herself. So, and she was a trooper. She
She
just
is a
kept going
rock
and kept
star.
going.
And you know what the funniest part about this conversation right now is she's over there blushing right now.
I'm sure she is. I'm sure she is. But yeah,
She's so lovely.
we have, I mean, it really has been amazing to see people that, just started to watch other shows, and then they started their channels, and now they have their communities. It really has been an amazing thing to watch. All of these people get started and
I
do
owe
their
you.
own thing,
I mean,
start
I owe you
thinking
for
for
my growth.
people. And
Yeah. I owe
yeah,
you.
go ahead,
I owe
John.
you for my growth. Without you, I never would have started. You actually pushed me into actually coming back out,
Oh, well,
which was so
it
lovely.
was a no-brainer, actually. I think anybody would have done it,
Are you,
John.
you saying I don't have any brains? I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking.
It really was a no-brainer. I really didn't have to think very hard about that one. It was very, very obvious. People needed to know you and hear you. So, and thank you so much for coming on. And is there anything you want to tell people? I put your information for your channel and your website in the description, but is there anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
Well, I'm on another live stream like this on Friday with another group. Look at my community page; you'll see the information coming up on that. I can't remember their name right now. Sorry. And I do a live stream myself every other Friday night, so it won't be this next Friday, but the following. And I'm completely open. Whatever questions come in, whatever topics come in. I won't do it on a Thursday because I will not miss Thursday Night Live with Kim Carey.
Yay. Thank
So,
you. It'll be on this Thursday. And, everybody's bringing up your appearance on Next Level Soul and said it was so, so good. So to check that out. And I think I burnt my bridge with Next Level Soul, because let me tell you what happened. I reached out to the I can't think of his name right now, Alex. I
Alex,
reached out to
yeah.
the creator and said, would you come on my channel and talk about your story? Because I heard him talking about how he was involved with the mob and had all this stuff happen. And I was like, this is insanity. And they wrote back and said, do you want to come on do you want to come on the show? And I wrote back and said, no, I was asking your creator if he wants to come on my show. And then they just never talked to me again.
Well, Kim,
What's going on here?
yeah, don't take offense to it. Let me tell you what happened with Alex. Alex, when I was interviewed in March, he had 74,000 subscribers. He now has almost 400,000 subscribers. He got involved with Daryl Eves, who is the guy who does Mr. Beast's YouTube marketing.
Uh-huh.
And they connected, and Alex is now one of the fastest rising YouTube stars out there right now. And so I would be surprised if anybody could get through to Alex right now. I just emailed him a couple weeks ago. He told me to contact him in August about coming back on, and I emailed him a couple weeks ago, and he hasn't responded to me at all. So
Yeah, I think
he's
you're
just
a
busy.
perfect guest for him. I think you're so perfect for that. I mean, absolutely. It's like a match made in heaven. I think that's a perfect match.
And I'll tell you my experience with Alex after that. We did that session, and a week later he called me up. He says, "John, I was just looking at your YouTube channel. Here's some things I think you could tweak that might help." I mean, out of the blue, he gave me that for free.
Oh, how nice!
So yeah, see, he's a
I
nice
love
guy.
that.
He's just stressed.
Yeah.
he's just stressed right now.
Well, I didn't take it personally.
Don't take it personally.
I keep my ego out of it, but I just thought, well, I guess that's something that's not going to happen.
And
But,
don't think that you burned your bridge, because I'm
okay.
sure you haven't.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thank you so much for your comments and your little side stuff going on here. I appreciate it. Thank you, Carol, for jumping in. Thank you, everybody else who helped with moderating. I really appreciate it. Thank you, John. Please
Oh,
go see John on his channel, and please go see his website and see all the services he offers. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, John.
and
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
Kim. Thank you, Kim.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.